She sat on the floor, leaning against the couch, her laptop on her knees. The floor lamp lit only one side of her, the other was swallowed by shadow. I approached with a mug of tea and set it down beside her. She didn't notice. She was laughing, not with me, but with her thoughts. "Listen," she said, "if I told you I had a lover, would that be funny?" I smiled. I didn't know what to say. "Just hypothetically," she added. "Well, depends how you deliver it," I said. But in that moment, something clicked inside. Like a door closed too quickly. My fingers trembled, though the room was warm. I told myself it's a joke. A creative mind at work. But for some reason, she kept rehearsing that line. Again. And again. And every time, it sounded slightly different. As if she wasn't playing. She was remembering. She used to joke about her boss, her mom, traffic jams. Light, everyday stuff. But that evening, all her jokes were about us. About a husband who doesn't notice. About a man who's like an accountant in bed, precise, but without passion. I laughed. Genuinely. Until I realized she wasn't reading off the screen. She was reciting from memory. The next evening, the same thing. A new scene. "I have a lover, can you believe it? He's wild. He's an animal. He's like a tsunami after that little puddle I've got at home." I pretended to yawn. Hid my eyes. But something cracked in my chest. Like something splintered beneath the wallpaper of my comm. I started noticing she didn't rehearse when I was around, but when she thought I was asleep. Her tone grew warmer. Her smile softer. Who was she talking to? The mirror? Or someone in her mind? I went back to bed. Lay on the colder side. The one she used to warm. The microphone, the one I bought her for her birthday, stood on the dresser. New, with a golden rim. Like a ring. I looked at it. And couldn't understand, did I give her a voice? Or a stage for something I didn't want to know? I held the box with the microphone the way you hold something precious. Fragile. It was black, matte, with a gold ring at the base, exactly like our wedding band. I chose that one not because it was the best, but because she once said if I ever get on stage, it should be beautiful. And a little like me. I smiled then. And now I held my breath. She opened the box with quiet excitement and for a moment looked like her old self. "Do you really think I can do it?" she asked. "I never doubted you for a second." I lied. But I wanted it to be true. I brought her flowers. Simple. Yellow. She always said they were funny, like sunshine in bad weather. "You sure you won't be mad?" she asked, already walking toward the stage. "Joke about me all you want," I said. "If it helps you, I'm all for it." She kissed me on the cheek. Brief. Businesslike. As if she'd rehearsed that moment too. I came early. Got a seat in the second row. Took out my phone, ready to record. To support. I looked at the stage like it was her dream, finally made real. Inside, pride. Mixed with something sticky. Unspoken. But I pressed it down like dust under a rug. She walked out in black. A simple top. Jeans. Hair pulled back. No mask. Just her and the microphone. My gift. Our symbol. "I have a husband," she began. "Kind of average." The crowd laughed. So did I. "And I have a lover. Now he's a beast." Laughter. Applause. And my heart stopped. But I still believed it was just a joke. Of course. All stand-up comedians do it. A bit of pain, a bit of exaggeration, and there you have it. After the show I waited backstage. She was glowing. Radiant. "Well, you were amazing. You're not upset? You made the whole room laugh. I'm proud of you." And I really was. I think. We drove home in silence. She stared out the window. I gripped the wheel with both hands like the world's balance depended on it. Inside was a strange calm. Not silence, more like someone had muted the sound. I thought everything was fine. I wanted to believe that. I was good at it. At home, I put the microphone back in its box. Carefully. As if it could break from a wrong look. I placed it on the shelf next to our wedding glasses. They were dusty. We hadn't taken them out in a long time. The microphone sparkled more. As if now it mattered more. She said she was tired and would go to bed early. I nodded. Stayed in the kitchen, finishing my tea. Listened to the bedroom door click shut. 20 minutes passed. I peeked in, the bed was empty. The blanket smooth as if untouched. The bathroom light off. The balcony dark. It had just rained. 5 minutes later, she walked into the room. A faint smile on her face. Phone in hand. Lips slightly damp. As if she'd just said something to someone. Couldn't sleep, she said. Sat on the balcony for a bit. I looked at her hair. Dry. At her face. Calm. I nodded. But inside something twisted. It was the first crack. Not a fracture, not yet. Just a mismatch. Something you could forget. If not for the look. If not for the way, already in bed, she turned her eyes away when I faced her. The next morning, she was cheerful again. Breakfast, toast, music, as if nothing happened. I pretended nothing had either. But something had changed. A small shadow cast over the dining table. I started catching little things. Her phone, always with her even to the bathroom. Quiet voice notes through earbuds she pulled out too fast when I entered. And her smile. A smile not meant for me. It was still explainable. Still possible not to ask. Not to accuse. Just keep going. I trusted her. Or wanted to. But trust is like thin glass. One hit and it's never the same. That night I woke up alone again. This time I didn't get up. Just lay there, staring at the ceiling. Listening to her voice in the other room, low and quiet. I couldn't hear the words. Just the tone. That same tone from her act. The microphone stood on the shelf. I looked at it like it was evidence. It was still my gift. But now it felt like it belonged to someone else. As if it spoke not to me. And not about us. She stood on stage. The light hit only her, white, cold. I watched from the second row. My phone trembled in my hands, not from nerves. From something deeper. She laughed. Lightly. Clearly. Genuinely. The way she hadn't laughed with me in a long time. I noticed something new in her eyes. Not sparkle. Not joy. But life. As if someone finally saw her. Someone. Not me. She told another joke. The audience clapped. And I felt something go soft in my chest. Like a battery running low. I looked at her and at some point realized, I don't know this person anymore. Her movements were confident. Her tone almost theatrical. But behind it was something personal. As if she wasn't speaking to the crowd. But to someone. Someone who knew the subtext. I tried to remember the last time she laughed like that at home. I couldn't. A smile, yes. Once or twice. But laughter? No. The stage had become her home. And our home just a place she changed between performances. After the show, I suggested celebrating. She declined. Tired. Let's just go home, she said. But on the way, she barely said a word. Just looked out the window. As if waiting for a message. That night, I went to bed earlier. Pretended to sleep. I heard her sitting in the kitchen. Then laughter. That same laughter. Alive. And not for me. I walked into the room. She quickly turned off the screen. Just watching recordings, she said. Analyzing myself. I nodded. Though I saw the reflection, a call. Video. A silhouette of someone. We started living side by side. Not together. Conversations short. Touches accidental. As if I had become a familiar face. Not someone close. The microphone stayed on the shelf. Every morning I walked past and felt it watching me. It knew. It had heard more than I had. It remembered her real. And I didn't. I watched a recording of her performance. For the 5th time. Slowed down certain parts. Paused at the places where I used to just laugh. Now I searched her eyes. The pauses between words. The way she licked her lips before saying a name. A name. It slipped out like an accident. Oh, Victor would totally disagree. The crowd laughed. And I froze. Because I knew that name. It was in her phone. Where my contact used to be with a heart. My mouth went dry. I tried to swallow, but the gulp stuck. My body reacted before my mind. As if something inside already knew. And I still hoped I was wrong. I opened her old notes. Searched, was that name there before? It was. A couple of years ago. Victor. Advertising project. Brilliant, but cocky. I hadn't thought much of it then. Now every word sounded different. Screenshots of chats. Nothing explicit. But there was a photo, her in a cafe. Smiling. In the reflection of the glass, a man's figure. Blurred. But the hands. I recognized the hands. I started listening to old voice messages. Not hers, mine. From before. Comparing how she used to respond to me and how she replies to everyone now. Dry. A clipped as if she doesn't even read them. I started watching, not her, but myself. How I sit closer to the door when she's on the phone. How my heart races when I hear her footsteps in the hallway. Not excitement. Not joy. Just the dread of an incoming blow. The name Victor started coming up more often. Victor said the elevator joke drags on too long. Victor thinks I need to be rougher on stage. As if he were her editor. But it sounded different. Closer. More personal. I tried bringing it up. You mentioned Victor a lot. She shrugged. We work together. He helps me not be boring. I wanted to ask, and me? Am I your boredom? But I stayed silent. Like the voice wasn't mine anymore. Like I had become a spectator in my own life. That night I didn't sleep. The stage where she says things she's afraid to say to my face. I told her I forgot my keys. She was just about to leave. Rehearsal. As always. Wait. I'll be quick, I said, already pulling on my coat. But I didn't follow her. I got in the car. Drove to the building where they rehearsed. An office repurposed into a studio. Glass front. Blinds partially closed. I turned off the headlights and just waited. About 15 minutes later, the light turned on. Then her. Then him. Tall. Slightly balding. In a black turtleneck. He said something. She touched his shoulder. He ran his hand down her back. Slowly. And she didn't pull away. I drove off. Headlights off. Breath gone. As if I'd disappeared. I drove slowly. Through a city that suddenly wasn't mine anymore. Every streetlight felt like an interrogation. Every passerby a witness. To me. To my blindness. To my trust. I stopped at a 24-hour store. Bought a bottle of water just to hold something in my hands. My fingers shook. As if my body understood what I didn't want to. What I had denied. Until tonight. I didn't know what to do now. Call her? Ask? She would deny everything. I knew. Maybe even smile. Maybe hug me. Say, "Are you jealous?" But me, I don't know how to be jealous. I only know how to be reliable. The next morning I stayed silent. Watched her make coffee. The usual routine. Everything in its place. Except her hands, they trembled. Just slightly. As she poured the water. "You okay?" "Yeah, just tired. Yesterday's rehearsal drained me." She didn't even lie. Not directly. That was the worst part. I started setting alarms for the times she said she'd be at rehearsals. Woke up. Listened to the silence. Sometimes she didn't come home on time. Sometimes she slipped in too quietly. As if afraid to wake her own conscience. One evening, I played a recording of her performance. On the TV. Loud. No fast-forwarding. Sat across from it. Waiting. She walked in halfway through the monologue. At the part where she says, "And my husband? He's sweet, kind, comfortable, like a blanket that's always there, but doesn't keep you warm." She froze, then sat down, as if she were attending her own show. When the recording reached the line about the lover. "He holds me like he's afraid to lose me, and my husband. He's afraid to raise his voice, in case he scares off the silence." I hit pause. "Is it true?" I asked. No shouting. No accusation. Just a question. She looked me straight in the eyes. "That was funny, right?" Not yes. Not no. Like an actress still in character after the curtain falls. That's when I knew. She confessed. And yet didn't. Like someone breaking a window. Then saying, "It's just art." She didn't apologize. Didn't explain. Just got up. Went to the kitchen. I heard the kettle turn on. As if nothing had happened. I stayed seated. Staring at the screen where she was still frozen. Smiling. Alive. But not for me. I tried to remember when she stopped being mine. Maybe the night I bought the microphone? Maybe earlier, when she stopped asking, "How are you?" Or maybe when she started rehearsing not for the stage, but for the truth. That night she went to bed first. I stayed in the kitchen. Watched the kettle cool down without purpose. Watched the mug she didn't take. I didn't want to shout. Didn't want to argue. I just wanted to disappear from the role. To slip behind the curtain. To remain a spectator. With no lines. We never talked about it again. Never went back to the stage, the words, or that Victor. And that only made it heavier. Because silence isn't forgiveness. It's the end. Without a curtain call. We ate together. In silence. She chewed slowly, as if listening to her own thoughts. I stared at my plate, at the pattern along the edge. I had never noticed it before. Now it was the only thing I could look at. When she did speak, her voice sounded right. Confident. But her eyes, they looked through me. Like through a window display. I was there. But out of focus. The microphone sat on the shelf. She didn't dust it. Neither did I. As if we were both afraid, if we touched it, it might start sounding again. And we no longer wanted to hear. She didn't leave. I didn't ask her to. We stayed. Like two actors who had played out a drama, but got stuck on stage. No audience, no applause, but the performance went on. In the evenings, she watched shows, laughed at the right moments. Sometimes, she touched my hand, gently, out of habit, as if to check, "Are you still here?" And I was, physically. Sometimes, it felt like nothing had happened, like it was all just a hard phase, as if the confession on stage had been fiction. But then I'd remember her eyes, her pauses, the way she left for rehearsals without looking me in the eye. I started talking to myself, softly, in whispers, in the kitchen, in the shower, in the car. Not because I was going mad, but because there was no one else left to talk to. Her phone no longer hid from sight. It lay openly on the table, unlocked, as if it held no more secrets, or as if she knew I no longer had the strength to look. The microphone became part of the decor, a souvenir. It wasn't a tool anymore, not a voice, just silence, made solid. Sometimes I caught myself talking to it, in my head, like it was the only thing that had truly hurt her. Not the version for the stage, but the truth, off script, inside me. Sometimes I remember how she laughed at me, on stage. In that moment when the crowd clapped, I smiled too, but I didn't understand what for. Now I know. They weren't applauding the joke. They were applauding a confession. A revelation spoken not through tears but with stand-up timing. I asked myself, did she want me to know? Or did she just want to speak the truth without being held accountable for it? That microphone. I picked it out myself. I made it possible for her to say it out loud. But I didn't expect that I'd be the one she was speaking to. From the audience, sometimes I watch the video again. Not because I can't forget, but because I'm trying to hear what I missed. Every word sounds different now. Every pause louder. Now I hear she wasn't joking. She was confessing. Laughing so no one would realize how real it was. I remember her eyes when she stepped out from backstage. Clear. Light. Free. As if a weight had been lifted. Not from me. From her. Sometimes I wonder. Maybe she hoped I'd tell the truth too? Admit how often I stayed silent when I should have spoken. How many times I held her out of routine. How I didn't hear her even when she was right next to me, getting lost. Maybe the stage was her way of reaching out. Too late. Too loud. I'm not angry now. Not jealous. I just understand. The moment she first joked about the lover. It wasn't a joke. It was the ending. The microphone is still in the same spot. I never moved it. Not because I couldn't, but because it's part of my mistake. And of her freedom. I found it again today. Still dusty on the shelf. Standing upright like it was waiting. Not for her, for me. I picked it up. Heavy. Cold. Turned it in my hands like it was the first time. Brought it to my lips. And said, I had a wife. A real performer. The stage was her confession. I was her audience. And now there's silence. It was turned off. And maybe that was right. Everything that needed to be said was already said. Loudly. Laughing. In front of a crowd. And all that's left for me is silence. The most honest thing we ever shared. I put the microphone back. Not upright like before. I laid it down. On its side. A symbol it's no longer needed. She left. Not all at once. First internally. Then physically. She said this feels more honest. Not for me. For her. I didn't stop her. Didn't ask her to stay. I just nodded. And heard the door close. Quietly. Almost politely. Like end credits with no music. She packed her things carefully. Left behind a mug she used to drink tea from. An old scarf. And the microphone. I understood, she knew. That this is what would stay with me. I didn't go through her messages. Didn't look for that Victor. Because it wasn't about him. It was about us. About how we stopped being we. Now the mornings are quieter. The coffee cools more slowly. I listen not for her footsteps, but for their absence. And in that silence, there's something new. Peace. Or something like it. Sometimes I pick up the microphone. Not to speak, but to remember. What truth sounded like when it came out. And how it sounded when it wasn't meant for you. It's still black. With a gold ring. Like the ring I no longer wear. But also can't bring myself to throw away.